Hello! In today's video we will be looking at something that's going to really improve my camera. What is it? Well, find out after I've said roll titles! Welcome to the channel if it's your first time here, and welcome back if it's not. Now in today's video, which is sponsored by AliExpress, I've got an amazing new toy that is going to really help me when it comes to shooting videos, and I think it could help you if you make video content. What is it? It's this. And this is the Feelworld FW759 7-inch camera monitor. And it sort of does what it says on the packet. It's a monitor for your camera. Now, I picked this up on AliExpress and it was an absolute bargain. It was actually £67.98, which is really good value for money, and it had free shipping as well, which is awesome. And the retail price on this is around about £106. I really did get a bit of a bargain. And if you want even more of a bargain, I think what I should be able to do is I think AliExpress will give me some discount codes for you to use on your AliExpress orders. So I'll stick those on the screen there and also in the video description. But please bear in mind, I think they do have a sort of limited number of uses. So the sooner you use them, the better, basically. So yeah, this is a really, really handy little tool for making videos. And I've actually got one of them set up already on my main camera, my face camera, and I'm going to get one set up for my overhead camera. You might notice that the overhead camera does look a little bit different, and that's because I'm using my GoPro to film this, because, well, the camera that normally films is down here. So yeah, it does look a little bit strange, but it's going to be worth it in the end. So what does your £67 get you? Quite a lot, actually. Let's open the box and have a look. Okay, so we've got our user manual, which is fine, but to be honest, these are pretty self-explanatory to use, so you might not need this, but I'm not going to throw it away just in case. But yeah, you should be all right with this, and hopefully this video will help you. So we've got the sunshade, which is really handy for filming outdoors. We'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. The monitor itself, we'll look at that in a second. And then what else is in the box? Ah, right, this is what the sunshade clips into. It uses some Velcro, very nice, like that. And we've got an HDMI cable. So this has got a regular HDMI on one end and a mini HDMI on the other. I think my camera has actually got a micro HDMI, so yeah, just bear that in mind. Check the connector on your camera. Oh, okay, so this is just sort of mounting equipment, basically. So yeah, it comes with a sort of standard mount, and you can loosen it up and move this ball joint to any angle. And then yeah, it's got a cold shoe mount for it to clip into the top of your camera. Oh, and this is an HDMI lock. So this can lock the HDMI cable in position, which is quite handy. I don't think I really need it for my use case, but yeah, you can keep the HDMI connector locked into the side of the monitor, which is helpful. Okay, so let's just remove a few bits and bobs, and let's look at the monitor itself. Now you probably wonder, what is the point of getting a monitor like this? Well, it just makes life a lot easier, because let's just give you an example. I think my camera will turn on when I do this. Lining up shots on this kind of size screen is sort of okay, but lining them up on this size screen is a lot easier. Now, that's especially the case when you're sort of filming, say, outside, and the screens on these aren't always very bright. I've used my other Feelworld monitor outside and it's really, really good. And also, even if the camera's sort of slightly further away from you and you're just filming by yourself, it's a lot easier to see how your shot is looking sort of on a bigger screen than having to sort of squint into the distance. So let's have a look at the monitor itself. So yeah, there's some connections on the side, and so we've got a USB port here, and that's for doing software upgrades. We've got an on-screen display controller port. Don't know what that is, if I'm completely honest with you. We've got a headphones port, so you can monitor the audio coming out of your camera. So that's quite handy if your camera or microphone pack doesn't have an audio out. You can actually plug headphones into this and monitor the audio. It's got an AV connector here, so this takes in the sort of red, white and yellow connections here for video and audio. Don't ever use those really these days, but you can if you want to. And there we go, it's got a standard size HDMI input. And then down at the bottom here, we've got a DC 12 volt power jack. So you can either power it by 12 volt DC, but if you want to power it by battery, you can use the standard F970 batteries to power it. Then on the bottom here, we've got our sort of standard tripod mounting, which we can screw the supplied mount into if we want to. So yeah, now it's got a cold shoe mount to attach to the camera. Then on the front of it, we've got some buttons. We've got a mode button, we've got a left and right, we've got the menu, we've got an up down, which doubles as F1 and F2. What are those? I'll tell you in a second. And then we've got F3 and F4 and then power. Now I usually run these from mains power, especially the one that I've got fixed here. So, you know, it's quite handy, but I do have a relatively small F970 battery here. Capacity on this one's not very good, but hopefully it should last for the duration of this video. There we go, it's sprung into life already. But obviously it's just showing a blue screen at the moment because, well, there's nothing going on, there's no signal. So what we should do is maybe get a signal into it. So now that no signal should turn into a signal. Perfect, look at that. So the display quality is absolutely amazing, and even me looking at it from this sort of slightly obscure angle, I can still see what's going on, which is absolutely perfect. Right, okay, so let's have a quick little look at the menu. So I'll just rattle through this. I won't go through every single option. So first up, we've got the sort of picture side of things, where you can alter the brightness, contrast, saturation, color temperature, and the red and green levels, and also the tint. Generally, I leave mine on standard. I'm pretty happy with that. Go across. So here we can configure things a little bit more. So you've got your language, your aspect ratio, what it does on a no signal situation. So at the moment it shows a blue screen, but we can have a red screen, we can have a green screen, we can have a black screen. And then further down, we've got the on-screen display transparency. So we can alter how transparent the display is. So you don't always necessarily want to see it. And here you can make it move position slightly, which is quite cool. Then we've got the timeout of the on-screen display, the backlight setting. Obviously we can ramp it up a bit, but I think that's perfectly serviceable. But you know, we can take it up to the maximum setting. Some zooming settings. So you can zoom in a little bit more. I don't really need to do that. Now this is, I think, the sort of slightly more interesting stuff. So you can put a center marker on, put a red crosshair in the center of the picture, so you know that is your center of your frame, which is really handy for getting shots set up. So we've got safe frames. So depending on how you crop your video, you can add the safe frame around it. Or for example, if you like to crop to 2.35 by 1 widescreen, you can leave that on there so you can see exactly what's going to be in the shot. And then we've got 9 grid, which puts the grid, again, helpful for lining up shots. I like to have that setting on, actually. I think it's pretty cool. We can freeze the image. I don't think we want to do that. And we can also flip the image, because sometimes you might be mounting this screen upside down, for example. Especially like for me here, where I've got a sort of gantry where like my cameras and things hang from. So that's really handy for that as well. And you can also make it so the on-screen display flips as well. So when you're trying to use the on-screen display, it's at the right angle. Or you can actually flip it on an axis as well to make it backwards for, well, whatever reason. Now this is where our F buttons come in handy. So this tells you what our F buttons do. Now you can actually configure them to do different things, but I think the defaults are actually quite handy. So F1, it's got a sort of color histogram in the corner there. You can turn that on and off. F2 is false colors, which is helpful for looking at the colors on your shot. It's got different levels there. You know, this is sort of like proper nerdy, geeky stuff like that. So F3 is like a check field, so you can cycle through different colors and see how they're looking. So you can make sure like one color's not blowing out another color. So you've got a mono one, you've got a red one, you've got a green one, and you've got a blue one. So the blue level, especially around here of this shot, is actually quite low. Now this one on F4 is the one I use the most, and it is so helpful. And some cameras don't actually have this feature, and that is focus assist. Now it's quite hard to demonstrate. Actually, that's quite a good demonstration in itself. Now I've made the picture on my screen very, very out of focus. So there's a little bit of red for some slightly in focus things. If we move it out and get some more stuff in focus, there we go, getting it to focus on the batteries. It's quite hard to see, but everything's got a red outline, and it basically puts a red outline through things that are in focus. So when I'm filming in situations like this, where I've got something overhead, and sometimes the focus might shift to my hand, and then I go back and edit the video and I'm like, oh God, it's focusing on my hand. But with this, because it's highlighted it in red and it's got a red outline, you can clearly see that yes, that area of the shot is in focus and the rest of the shot doesn't have red on. Although the grid lines do have red on because they're seen as in focus. I've actually swapped back to my normal overhead camera because the GoPro does not make for a very good overhead camera. And yeah, I've just mounted the Feelworld monitor onto one of my old cameras. And yeah, you can just see the difference in size on screen real estate. So that is the Feelworld 7-inch monitor. And down here, we've got the teeny tiny camera monitor. It really does help having this sort of screen size when you're working out and about. Now, while you are working out and about, you might need the sunshade. So let's quickly pop that on. So first of all, we've got this framework that needs to go around the screen, and that sort of just clips on. There's little clips. Bit hard to see on the black on black, but there's little clips. So the framework is clipped into position, and then we get our sunshade, and then you just use the Velcro around the edge to cling on to the Velcro around the edge of the frame. And there we go. So that's sort of fully protected from the sun, and means that it's a lot easier to see when you're outside. Even on a sort of relatively overcast day, sometimes looking at a monitor, especially from a distance, can be a bit tricky. So yeah, that looks fantastic. I'm pleased with that. Now the screen itself actually has a resolution of 12,080 by 800 pixels. So it's not HD or 4K, but it can accept HD and 4K signals in from your camera. So even though the display isn't HD or 4K, it can downscale nicely, so any sort of source from your camera will work. So for the price I paid, around £60, although the prices do fluctuate slightly, so you might be able to get them cheaper or maybe slightly more expensive, but either way, the price that I paid is extremely reasonable for what is an external monitor that supports 4K resolution and has some extra bits and bobs that some cameras might not have. The focus assist is probably my killer feature on here because I just use it all the time on my other monitor. It just makes life so much easier for ensuring that everything is in focus. So yeah, that is this Feelworld 7-inch monitor, unboxed, set up, and fully played with. I don't think I've got anything else to say. Oh no, I do. If you watch this far into the video, please put in the comments, Feelworld quality. Yeah, do that. Because there's so many people that watch these videos, but they sort of tail off towards the end, which is fine. So if you use the term Feelworld quality in the comments, I'll make sure I give your comment a little bit of extra love. Not like that. But anyway, I don't have anything else to say. No, I definitely don't now. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. But for now, it's game over.